Here we go. All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's issue of Neon Nerds, where the talk is more maximum than carnage. We are your hosts. I am Philip McNulty.
And I'm Ryan Brady.
And welcome to the second installment. And speaking of carnage, we have some official news here. Yeah. That our theme, Carnage Rules by the band Green Jello, spelled green jelly, but the Y has the two umlauts on top of it,
Oh, really?
Which makes it pronounced O for the Jello. We'd like to give a big shout out and thanks to Bill Manspeaker and Rob Gabriel from the band, who we asked for permission to get it because we love Maximum Carnage and we love the series and the video game, and that's what the main theme and the soundtrack was produced by those guys. So I contacted them over Facebook. Rob saw my message on Bill's profile pic because Facebook wasn't letting me send him a message. So I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry."
You just laid him a photo comment on his profile.
I left him
what was the picture of?
It wasn't a photo comment. It was his profile picture.
Yeah.
And he was like, and I felt really bad because it was like because they're on tour and Bill Manspeaker, who is the leader of the band, and it's his band, and he's over in England right now, and I'll give you a list of their tour dates coming up to check those guys out. But yeah, I wrote on his profile picture. I'm like, "Hey, we're starting a podcast here. Do you mind if we use your song?" And then Rob Gabriel, who is in the middle of doing a documentary on the band and everything and plays drums for him, was like, "Hey, here's his contact information. Here's the live version." He's like, "Just, contact Bill." So he gave me his email, been in touch with Bill Manspeaker, and really great guys, and big shout out to them, and thank you for Carnage Rules to be the official theme of the Neon Nerds podcast.
Yeah, really, thank you. Like you said, I remember renting Maximum Carnage like weekly, because back then games wouldn't save. And every time we were like, "We're going to rent Maximum Carnage," we'd put that song on.
You had to prep yourself. And it's a badass song.
Yeah.
But if you definitely...
And it's insanely 90s.
Exactly right. But that guitar riff is timeless. It's awesome. And so for more info on them, go to greenjellosucks.com. Sucks is spelled S-U-X-X, and it's spelled as Jello, so it's GREENJELLOSUXX.com for them. Currently they're in, as I said, they're in England right now, and they have shows coming up on November 22nd, which is London. Then on the 24th in Chester, November 25th in York, the 26th in Manchester, November 27th in Milton, the 28th in Glasgow, November 29th in Wolverhampton, November 30th Bristol, and then back in December, there are dates to be announced, but definitely on the December 5th, there's Indianapolis, which is their 120th show. And then on the 10th, they'll be in Charlotte, and then on December 17th, 18th, and 19th in New York City. So go check out greenjellosucks.com. Big thanks to them, and Carnage does rule for us over here at the Neon Nerds podcast.
Unfortunately, we're not doing the Carnage episode today.
No, that's a future episode, and
we want to have a couple Spidey episodes, scattered around.
Yeah, we're gonna probably try to make that a video one as we try to topple the video game. Have you ever beaten Maximum Carnage?
Hell no.
I know, it's the hardest game. Okay. In this week's episode, we're gonna talk. It's gonna be a mainly Spider-Man centric episode.
Yeah.
We're gonna tackle the story that we love that everybody hates.
The Clone Saga.
So Neon Nerds is the Clone Saga installment number 2. Issue number 2 is the Clone Saga begins. Okay, here we go. This is what I've been waiting for. As we were texting earlier to set up when I was going to come over to record, Ryan goes, "Oh, I have a cartoon that I drew based on the Clone Saga. Is this the?" So I'm looking at these right now. We're gonna put these up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
I'm inking and coloring them right now, but these are gonna be like kind of like just previews for the show. So this would be like Neon Nerds episode 2, Ryan and Phil tackle the Clone Saga.
I know. I was gonna say, is that me?
Yeah, you're hard to draw, man.
Oh, this is
I couldn't
awesome.
get your hair right.
Oh, okay, so here we go. In this comic, I'm in the traditional Peter Parker garb, and Ryan is in the classic Scarlet Spider costume, and it's awesome. This is gonna be great. This is awesome. Oh, I'm not gonna look at this one. That one's too good. That one's too good.
All right.
So because we have future episodes coming up about different comic book series of the 90s.
Different plot lines.
The plot lines. And that was a hint. I saw just the poses, and I'm excited about that episode. But we're going to post this image up. Ryan, this is awesome, man.
Oh,
this is great. This classic Spidey poses. This is okay, and that's going to lead to another thing that Ryan and I were talking about. Listen to the end of the show. I'm going to give details on a special giveaway.
Right.
About it's going to deal with this episode. It's going to be original artwork from the both of us. And so, obviously, if we're talking about Scarlet Spider, then I guess you can imagine us being comic book artists, what the special giveaway is going to be. But listen to the end. We'll give you more details about that. So, yeah, that's great. I love it. We're going to post that. It's going to be awesome. We'll give a little plug about the show. We're now on iTunes.
Yep.
SoundCloud, Stitcher, and so you can now follow us at Facebook. Is facebook.com/Neon Nerds Podcast.
Yes.
There's also follow us on Twitter at Neon Nerds Podcast, and just go to SoundCloud. Just search Neon Nerds Podcast. Please subscribe to iTunes. Give it a 5-star rating to the first episode and this episode when you listen to it. It's going to be much appreciated. That way we can continue giving you the 90s goodness that we love and give you the perspective that you want to hear.
Oh, and we have an Instagram too.
Yes.
So you can see pictures we've taken of toys, of the cartoon itself, and of our setup.
Yes.
In case you're wondering what our lair looks like where we record this.
We're getting official now. I was doing research, Googling research on how to get a podcast popular. And it was like, you need social media. It's like, no shit, Sherlock, of course. So, but yeah.
We're also skating uphill, though. Because there's a lot of 90s comic book hate out there. And we're like, but we like it.
We are rising up against everyone who's tried to put you down.
We're defending everything.
We're the Peter Parker and Ben Reilly of podcasts. And we're out to fight against the Flash Thompsons of the world that want to keep us down, and the smokestacks that they want to drop Ben Reilly into.
Oh, are we ready to talk about the smokestack?
Yes, we're ready to talk. All right, let's give you a little. Here we go. We're talking about the Clone Saga. So the Clone Saga in the 70s was introduced by
as Jerry Conway wrote this story.
Yes,
and I read that the story was originally like a cautionary tale because they had just killed Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
And in this issue, there's a character, Miles Warren. He's the Jackal, and he makes a clone. He's infatuated with Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
She dies. He clones her. So the cautionary tale was Jerry Conway saying, "Don't ever bring Gwen Stacy back because this is how ridiculous it'll be."
I didn't see. Now I thought it was. Now I like. Okay, so what happened was the Jackal he has this infatuation with Gwen Stacy.
Yes.
So he clones Spider-Man, and by doing so, he clones Peter Parker, and in doing so finds out
that he's Spider-Man.
Yeah. So when Spidey goes to fight the Jackal, he fights his clone. Which they get into the fight, and you don't know which one is which.
And that issue has an awesome title. Do you remember what it is?
No, go ahead.
It's what is it? Oh, I don't remember. It's it's even if I win, I die.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
The cover, the cover of it has the two. The one is in the darker blue, and the one is in the lighter blue.
I actually have the reprint. Remember when they were doing those silver border milestone issues?
Yes. Yeah.
I have the reprint, and I don't know where it's at.
So what happens is ultimately it ends with one Spider-Man dropping his clone into a smokestack, and he figured out that he was the true Spider-Man because the Peter Parker that he cloned didn't know Mary Jane. And he said, well, I love Mary Jane, so therefore I'm not the clone.
Yeah. And that's the 70s.
That's the 70s.
So we're not even in the 90s yet.
So 20 years later, at 19, this is what's great about 90s comic books. There was no reboots. You couldn't say, all right, here we go.
That didn't happen.
Here's a Convergence or a Secret Wars event where we're gonna start, or a New 50 or a Flashpoint, which we're gonna start with all ones, retell the origins. They said, you know what? If we wanted, everything's so popular right now is replacement heroes because we had Superman was killed off.
Well, that's actually part of it.
Yeah, that's what inspired this. Yeah. What inspired this?
But it was also. Comics weren't doing that hot in the 90s. I mean, Marvel hit bankruptcy by the end of the 90s.
91 they went bankrupt.
But DC was doing awful with Superman until they killed him. Mm-hmm. And that whole reign of the Superman run, Marvel was like, oh, you know what? That could work.
We'll just keep them all. We got a bunch of Superman. We got Superman with a Gambit headpiece. We got an Iron Man type Superman named Steel. We have Superboy, who's going to take over the lead Superman title. And then Batman was like, hey, replacement heroes are in. Yeah. So they got Nightfall, which was critically acclaimed and wildly successful, which was the introduction of the Nightfall Batman, which introduced the character of Jean-Paul Valley, who would take up the mantle of Azrael in a spin-off. Yep. So it was great marketing by DC. They said, we're going to replace the main hero with a replacement hero, and then by the end of that storyline or saga or whatever, we're going to split out and have new titles. And so if you wanted to keep up with the death of Superman, you had to buy the different heroes. And when Superman came back, you wanted to continue following those storylines of Superboy, of Steel, and eventually Azrael got his own title after Nightfall, so you could follow what happened in the backstory of that character that was introduced. Yeah. So Spider-Man being the flagship title for Marvel, because before this, Todd McFarlane was killing it on a Spider-Man, and then he got his own objectiveless Spider-Man, which was just called Spider-Man, and then ultimately he left for Image and Spawn. Spider-Man had 4 different monthly titles. They had Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, and the regular no
just
title,
Spider-Man,
just objectiveless Spider-Man. So they introduced they were going to go pull a page out of DC's book and introduce a new Spider-Man, like sort of the replacement for Peter Parker, and then the ultimate goal was to give Scarlet Spider his own goal, his own series.
Right.
So what happened was they took the story of the Jackal from the 70s, and they introduced. Do you remember this issue? They introduced the brown-haired guy who kept calling Aunt May's house.
Yeah.
So it starts out. They introduced this mystery figure of this guy in brown hair and has a ring. He was wearing a ring, and he would call up Aunt May. Now during this time, Aunt May was ill. She fell ill, and you could tell where it was heading. Aunt May doesn't seem too long for this world. So when Mary Jane answers it, she's like, "Hello, Peter," and then he was like, and then it ends with Mary Jane slamming the phone on the guy, and then he's like, "Mary Jane?" with a question mark.
Oh.
So so during this stretch, Peter Parker was really emo, and he was down on himself.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, where Spider-Man wasn't doing so hot.
No.
Like
post-McFarlane, he was getting a little bit into Batman territory.
Yeah, he was getting dark, and they needed a way. They were like, oh, how can we bring back the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? All right. But they also like to do this. They did it recently. They always reboot Spider-Man when he gets too old.
Yes.
If he loses Aunt May, because at this point, Aunt May's sick. Yeah. We all know Aunt May's going to die. He's married Mary Jane. They're working on kids. and you're like, oh, Spider-Man. I remember when you were like 15 in high school having like a blast fighting like the Vulture, you know? And they did it recently.
And he just got done, and this was the series right after Maximum Carnage. So you had Doppelganger. Of course, you had Carnage and Venom, which Venom got his own spin-off series.
Yeah,
so
Lethal Protector.
So now so even Venom is more uplifting than Peter Parker at this time. So eventually we get this. So this is what we're talking about. Why our generation loves Ben Reilly.
Yeah.
How 96? I was going 9 to going on 10 for the Clone Saga. So I was looking through some of my old back issues before we came, and I found Web of Spider-Man 114, which is one of the comics when I was a kid. I would pick up X-Men and Spider-Man. And one of the first Spider-Man I picked up was the actual first appearance and introduction of Ben Reilly.
Is that when he goes after Venom?
Yes.
Huh.
And so you're like, but it was also being a twin. I'm a sucker for my biggest enemy is myself. Like, those characters are I love reading, like,
even if I live, I die.
Even if I live, I die. And so it was Spider-Man, on the cover had Spider-Man gripping the collar of Peter Parker, and Peter Parker gripping the costume where the collar would be of Spider-Man. It was like Spider-Man versus his ultimate enemy, Peter Parker. And you're like, oh, shoot. But that's how creative it was. Fighting himself was literally fighting himself.
Right.
Was this clone. So 20 years ago, in the 70s, when Conway had Spider-Man drop the clone into the smokestack, well, that clone didn't die.
No.
He took on the name of Ben Reilly, which is first name for Ben for his Uncle Ben, and then his Aunt May, her maiden name was Riley.
It's also worth mentioning that even though the storylines are written 20 years apart in our world, in the comic book world, it's only 5 years apart.
That's right. I read that today. Yeah. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. So he falls down the smokestack and he gets up, but he just wanders around for 5 years,
being a nomad.
Yeah.
And so that's our first introduction. So when he hears of news of Aunt May being sick, he goes in and he checks it out. Now, what's funny about this is the two thoughts of thinking when the introduction of Ben Reilly was that Peter Parker, that he thinks that they made it the hardest mystery to solve. Was Ben Reilly really Peter Parker? So they basically said the 20 past years of comic books you've been reading was really the clone of Spider-Man. And that this Ben Reilly is actually Peter Parker who used the guise of Ben Reilly. So you're like, oh my God, have I been reading the clone of Spider-Man since the Jackal?
Yeah.
Which is great in the fact that they had to stretch back of a storyline 20 years ago and say, this is how we're going to introduce that. Now, I love the creativity of having to go back in the past issues and plucking a character that you never would think would ever come back.
Yeah.
And bring them back.
Yeah, throwaway character.
A simple Spider-Man clone they brought back. So now when reading it, Peter Parker has been really down on his luck, and he's been trying to say, well, my life is good. I'm married, I have and at this point, passed away was Aunt May. She passed away at issue 400.
Yeah, of Amazing
Spider-Man. So Peter Parker was like, you know what? Because you saw these adventures of Scarlet Spider do his thing and Peter do his thing, and then they merged and they met. They had their duke it out. I'm Spider-Man. But Peter Parker and Ben Reilly, they got down to talk and everything. And Pete kind of said, you know what?
Well, it's because Mary Jane's pregnant.
And
she's having trouble with the baby. And
because she thinks he's gonna have spider powers.
No, remember?
Was that it?
No, I just read it. It's a Spectacular Spider-Man. What is it? 229. I know this is a visual medium. I don't care. So she's pregnant. She has trouble with the baby. And he goes to the hospital, and him and Ben Reilly are like, what's wrong with the baby?
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, for some reason, she's like irradiated. And he's like, oh, no. And they don't come out and say it, but he's like, oh, my radioactive man juice. So he feels guilty.
A different thwip.
Yeah. He feels guilty. And then they have to go get this medicine off the new Dr. Octopus at the time, who was a woman. And she's trying to kill her father, and while Spider-Man's fighting her, he's like, why are you trying to kill your father? And she's like, he was never around. There was always something more important. And then he feels like, is that going to be me?
So he says to Ben Reilly, you know what? My duty is at home.
Yeah.
You can be Spider-Man. And Ben Reilly's like, you know what? I'll continue to be Scarlet Spider.
Yeah, he doesn't feel worthy of the costume.
Exactly. He doesn't feel worthy. So for the next couple months, see, now this is what's great. And this is why, the fate of Ben Reilly today is Ben Reilly's dead. He's not, he basically sacrifices himself.
Hey, spoiler alert,
Phil.
Phil.
Spoiler alert.
20 year spoiler, man.
But Ben Reilly, this is what was cool about at the time for us. We're 10 years old, and we're like, we can't relate to this Peter Parker. Baby troubles, fatherhood. I want the guy who's punching Venom in the face.
Well, you said your first Scarlet Spider issue was when he fought Venom.
Yeah, when he fought Venom.
So my first Scarlet Spider issue was Spider-Man Unlimited #1. He's on the cover. He's like on like this tank, and I think there's a clone inside of it. But the issue, he's in the sewers. He's fighting like mutant animals that the High Evolutionary created, and he's just wisecracking and shooting webs and just being awesome. And there's no dark plot. It's not like dreary. It's just awesome.
Because he was taking up, because of the 4 Spider-Man books, he was taking was it Web of and Adjectiveless? Either way, of the 4 Spider-Man books. 2 were focusing on Scarlet Spider, and 2 of them were focusing on Peter Parker. But even in the Peter Parker issues, Peter Parker was kind of the mentor towards Ben Reilly. It was like, okay, Ben, here's some certain things, because you fought different characters I fought characters that you haven't fought yet. So it was kind of like almost a Batman in the future, if you've seen Batman Beyond.
Yeah, Batman Beyond.
It was when Bruce Wayne's old. He had someone to kind of show him the ropes, and he's a clone of Peter Parker, so he's wisecracking. He's awesome. He's light on his, he's quick on his feet, and he's fighting all the villains that you know and love. While Peter's focusing in on sonograms and all that jazz. So, of course, us being kids at the time, we're going to go towards this one and the hoodie.
Look, can we talk about how Ben Reilly is the sexier Spider-Man than Peter Parker? Look, I've done a lot of thinking about this, Phil.
Yes, please go on.
All right, #1, that outfit. I don't mean sexually like that. I mean like sleek. I mean stylish.
No. You mean you prefer blondes, don't you? You prefer blondes.
Look, that's part of it. All right, listen up. First off, that Scarlet Spider outfit. It doesn't even work in the real world. If you've seen a guy in like a skin tight red suit with a ripped up hoodie, you're like, that's lame. But in the comic books, there's nothing cooler than that.
Did you feel like you could be Spider? When I saw that costume, I felt like, because Spider-Man has one of the most intricate costumes in all of comic books.
Yeah.
But that Scarlet Spider was literally just red jumpsuit.
It's so simplistic, but so perfect, and it makes no sense. It's like a hoodie with the sleeves ripped off, and sometimes the hood's ripped off too.
Yeah, I like a clean hood. I like the fact
you like the hood.
I like when the hood is not ripped. I like the clean version of the hood with the ripped up, because it's a little badass that he's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I can kind of hide in the shadows a little bit more with the hood on.
Yeah.
But still have the badass ripped arms. There's just something about me that says, I like, and when he swings, there's something about that cool little visual of the hood intact, because he's not Batman. He's a badass Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And so the only ripped portion is the side of the
Now, do you like when the hoodie's tucked in the belt or out?
I like it out. I like it, I'm not a proper guy, and there's a little bit of bad boy to
see, you're starting I think you're starting to see what I'm talking about.
There is, as soon as Ryan goes, I want to defend the sexiness of Ben Reilly. We're just not talking the looks, because he dyed his hair blonde because Peter Parker was drawn and Ben Reilly were drawn the exact same way.
Yeah.
So to differentiate the two, Ben Reilly dyed his hair blonde. So he's the blonde hair, debonair with a bad boy edge.
Yeah.
How can you not like that?
He's got the sweet ass costume. He has his web shooters.
Yes.
On the outside. Which is practical.
Yes, because it's what if it gets stuck in the glove of Spider-Man?
Yeah.
What if he has a misfire? Oh crap, my glove is filled with spiderweb. And he had that awesome belt.
Yeah, because he knows he's like, I'm going to be shooting a lot of webs.
I'm going to need refills on my cartridges.
Because he invented impact webbing.
Exactly right. This is why Ben Reilly's awesome.
And
impact web ball.
How many issues have you read where Spider-Man's like, oh, I ain't got no pockets? Ben Reilly was like,
I got a hoodie.
I got little pouches on my ankles in case I want to stop off for a slice.
The ankle pouch. Do you remember they had something like that at the time? They had little, I don't know if you had it, they had little wallets that had Velcro on it that you could put on your wrist for during that time as little kids.
Really?
Yeah, because
I remember the money pouch for your belt.
For the fanny pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is for the teacher. This is free fanny packs for little kids. You want to learn how to protect your money, kid?
I hope there's someone listening who's a child who's made it this far, and they're like, what's a fanny pack?
Fanny pack.
They were on board for all the other stuff. They're like, yeah, clones and Ben Reilly. Fanny pack.
What's a fanny pack? And why are there ankle packets? But no, I remember getting one and thinking, I'm like Ben Reilly.
Yeah.
That's it. Because we were talking about earlier in the week, we were texting, preparing for this, and I was like, he's like, it's got to be, and Ryan was like, it's got to be the hoodie. It's got to be that costume. And I said, I'm going to give my answer to him live on the podcast.
Yes, let's hear it.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be either Gambit or I wanted to be Spider-Man.
Okay.
I couldn't be Gambit because
you're not Cajun.
I'm not Cajun. I'm not a mutant. But I could still be bitten by a radioactive spider. That possibility.
I'm still holding out for that.
I was not afraid of spiders until I was 12, when my dad was like, don't touch that spider. I was like, no, I can get Spider-Man powers. He's like, no, you can't. It's worse than learning that Santa's not real. The fact that I had no longer a chance of being Spider-Man.
I'm sorry, Phil.
That's all right. But during that time, I knew that if I got bit by just the right spider, I could grab just an all red suit. I've seen on TV, the ballet people, they're on all black. I can get an all red one. I can obviously get a blue hoodie, just draw that spider emblem on the chest. Yeah. And I was ready to go to be Spider-Man because it's so damn practical. Take the wrist packs that not the fanny packs, but the wrist packs for the kids. Put them on your ankle, and then you figure out how to develop webbing. And you can be Spider-Man. I love that. I love Ben Reilly because I could have been Ben Reilly. Yeah. I fancy myself almost as close as you can get to Peter Parker.
You can still be Ben Reilly. We can get you a red jumpsuit.
You know what? I think Halloween. This next Halloween, I'm gonna go as Ben Reilly.
If you want to see Phil dress up as Scarlet Spider, go on iTunes and write it in the reviews.
Yes, if I will dress up as Ben, I will. I won't even wait till Halloween.
Yeah. Oh no, you're not.
If we get 5 or 10 5-star ratings.
Let's go. I don't know. Let's go 5.
5-star ratings with the review. I want to see Phil as Ben Reilly. I will dress up as Ben Reilly and I will roam the streets. I will record it. We'll put it up on YouTube.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, okay. The Ben Reilly challenge.
It's been thrown. The gauntlet's been thrown.
So it's up to you, listeners, to get me to dress up as Ben Reilly. Okay. Back to the...
Oh, I'm not done with my thing, though.
Oh, no. Go. No, please do.
All right, so I still have 2 last things, I think.
For sexy Ben Reilly.
For sexy Ben Reilly. And I think people are out there like, you know what? Yeah, what's Peter got? All right, so the first thing is Ben Reilly is more stylish. Because we just talked about how awesome his costume is.
He got the blonde highlights. Before blonde... He was pre-NSYNC.
Yeah.
Before NSYNC, there was Ben Reilly.
And then even his sensational Spider-Man costume isn't that bad.
Oh, I love that
With the giant emblem.
He has the giant spider that the arms connect over the shoulders to create the spider emblem.
I had that 12-inch figure.
It's like, yeah. You know what figure that I had to get?
What?
I had to find the Maximum Carnage in the box. The 12-inch figure of that.
Of Carnage.
And I had to find the Marvel Legends released the Ben Reilly like 8-inch figure.
I saw it at FYE.
Do you see it at FYE? I'm gonna have to pick that up.
Yeah, I want it. But Christmas is coming.
Christmas is coming. Listeners, aka mom, dad, girlfriends, we have a love for Ben Reilly. It's a little bit of a man love.
I actually went on Amazon to try to buy the volumes, but each volume is like $30.
And you want to know why?
Why?
They prefer a sexy Spider-Man than Ben Reilly.
They know there's people out there like people are going to pay for this. But Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man has had so many like awful Spidey costumes.
Oh.
I mean, the traditional red and blue is awesome. The black symbiote's awesome. But I mean, once we get into like the Future Foundation white costume, the Iron Spider that's nearly swastika Spider-Man,
the bombastic Bagman, the Fantastic Four with a paper bag over his head with bare feet.
So Peter Parker doesn't have any style. And then my last thing is why Ben Reilly is more sexier than Peter Parker. Peter Parker, when he needs money, what does he do? He takes pictures and sells pictures of himself.
How narcissistic.
How narcissistic. What does Ben Reilly do? He gets a sexy job working at a coffee shop. He was a hipster before there were hipsters.
Yeah, you want to know where hipsters and NSYNC came from? It came from Ben Reilly. He was the original Justin Timberlake.
I hope they read the Scarlet Spider and like, you know what? They're on something here.
and before he got into the awesome costume with the spider that reaches to the back.
Yeah.
Do you know he grew his hair out long, so he was rocking a longer hair? Because I'll never forget, he took off the mask.
Yeah.
Because what happened was there was an issue where he's fighting a alien version of in his first issue in that costume, he's fighting the lizard, which is like an alien version of the lizard.
Yeah.
So it's the parallels that one of Peter Parker's first villains was the lizard. So here we get him. He finally accepts the Spider-Man role. He's like, all right, you know what? The people of New York need Spider-Man. They don't need Scarlet Spider anymore. They need Spider-Man. And that's what preempts the change into that costume.
Oh.
And as he takes off the mask, he has his locks fall out of the mask. And there's Peter Parker. Because this is where also the introduction of... Because Peter Parker hasn't been seen for a couple months, except for but he's not in Spider-Man. So when he's fighting the lizard and he needs some help, you see this guy in like the nurse's garb, and with the face on there, help Ben Reilly out.
Oh.
Pete, he's got no sense. Got no fashion. He just grabbed scrubs and put them on.
He's terrible.
He's terrible. And Ben takes off his mask and he lets it's almost like one of those movies where it goes in slow motion where he shakes.
It was like lenticular. You could move it back and forth, and his hair is moving.
They need to bring back, because with the Edge of the Spider-Verse, I want a Scarlet Spider. If Spider-Gwen can get one, and Kane can be the current Scarlet Spider, we need a Ben Reilly back in this Spider-Man world.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because they took both Ben Reilly's costumes. They took the Scarlet Spider and they took the Sensational costumes, and they gave the Sensational Spider costume to Spider-Girl in the alternate universe, and they also did the same with Scarlet Spider. They gave it to Felicia Hardy in an alternate universe. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it.
We're just saying that if the fashion sense of Ben Reilly lives on.
I just, talking about it now, I'm like, man, I wish Ben Reilly was still around. Like, I wish he had his own comic book.
And he had, when it ends, he basically sacrifices himself to save.
Yeah, let's
go back. So back on track to where we left off. So either way, he was he was fighting. This is where it kind of got a little bit insane. Marvel realized we're making
it went on
money.
for much longer than they wanted it to.
Yeah.
And there were a lot more clones than we're talking about Ben Reilly and Spidey, but there were a lot of clones actually.
This is before. Okay, so it kind of hit a downturn towards the end, but before the downturn, they introduced the first messed up clone of Peter, which was Kane.
Yes.
Who had the full potential of Spider-Man. That was his shtick. He was in an awesome looking costume where he had like his face was covered and he had like this little billowy cape.
And he had long hair.
And he had long hair. And what happened was he killed Doc Ock.
Oh.
See, this is what people were like. People got upset if you killed their favorite characters back then, but even then they should have realized they were coming back.
Yeah, everybody comes back.
Everyone comes back. So people are like, I don't like Ben Reilly because, we're supposed to believe that 20 years he was the real Peter Parker. No. That's going to be resolved. It's going to be resolved. You're going to realize that, wait a second. No, this Ben Reilly is not really Peter Parker. He is the clone and all that. So get over it. So just enjoy the story, which Ryan and I enjoyed. You never knew who was the real Spider-Man, but you didn't care. You didn't care if it was Peter Parker or Ben Reilly because Ben Reilly was the classic, and they would even redraw Steve Ditko Spider-Man series in there where Ben Reilly would say, you know what, Uncle Ben taught me this lesson.
Yeah.
So you had a young Peter Parker who was not married.
Yeah, no kids.
He was dating on the scene.
Yeah.
So as 10-year-olds, we're going, I like this guy. He's playing the field. He's playing the field. He's living his life. He's punching Venom in the face. He was like, because Venom was like, don't you know this makes me stronger? Bam.
Another reason why Ben Reilly is sexier. So he never bonded with the symbiote, so his spider sense still works on Venom.
Yes.
In your face, kids. Well,
you want to come to us like that 9-year-old at Free Comic Book Day and you want to talk Venom could be Ben Reilly? No way.
So the only reason you could really be upset in the 90s is like, oh, we've been reading the Clone the whole time. But it's not like Nightfall, where Bruce Wayne got his back broken, John Paul Valley takes over, and he's a different kind of Batman. He's more edgy. He's more like he's like the Punisher. Mm-hmm. So I could see like, this is a different kind of Batman. It's not Batman.
Yeah.
But we had edgy, dark Peter Parker be replaced by the Spider-Man that we all know and love, and they were like, oh, it's just Ben Reilly. And everyone was like, what, a fun, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man who's having a great time, wisecracking and kicking ass? I don't like it.
Before the man with the brown hair was introduced with that fancy-ass ring calling up to make sure Aunt May was all right, this is why, he's sexy because he's also caring.
Yeah. Cares about the women in his life.
He cares, exactly.
He never tried to take Mary Jane either.
No, isn't that great?
Yeah.
It wasn't any dramatic or saying
what, kind soul.
And that was also the confusion that people had was like because they put that little seed of doubt in your mind when he was like, Mary Jane.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man. Oh, maybe he did know of Mary Jane, and that explanation in the 70s was wrong. See, but come on, guys. Peter Parker's got to be so. But before he came in, Peter Parker made himself a web cocoon and was like, I'm not going to talk right now, Mary Jane. And then he was like, and then after that, when he was fighting Shriek, right after Maximum Carnage, he was like, I am anger. He's like, I am violence. I am a spider. And they're like, no. And that's when we got Ben Reilly, who was like, he's fighting Venom, his spider sense works, and then Venom, as I said earlier, he gets all, oh, this doesn't affect me. He's like, oh yeah, I know, I'm just setting it up, and he hits him with a right hook.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. The hood is flipping out. it was the hoodie which was tucked becomes untucked because he does such a hard punch. Oh, it's great. It was great. But, yeah.
Compared to today's storylines, do people like Superior Spider-Man?
People loved Superior
Okay,
Spider-Man.
they loved it. Oh man,
you couldn't have. This is the we talked about the in comics response with Scarlet Spider. Take a look outside of comics. You would not be able to get Doc Ock puts his brain in a Peter Parker because and then you're going, oh no, I'm taking over Peter Parker. I can be a Superior Spider-Man. You don't get that without Ben Reilly. Ben Reilly was if you didn't have Ben Reilly, you wouldn't be able to buy that storyline. But
no, but I don't.
Peter's coming back.
Yeah.
Eventually, so don't get your
Just enjoy the ride. But I don't see how you could have you have a problem with Peter Parker's clone, but you don't have a problem with Doc Ock riding around in his body for 6 months.
I know, and he was an ass to Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Right. He dumped her. He was like, I'm making my own multi-million-dollar company, and you're like, no, I want, and even at this point, Peter Parker's like, he's a professor. He's a little scientist on the side. You're like, no, I don't want multi-millionaire Peter Parker.
Yeah, I want down in his luck Peter Parker.
Exactly. We want our Peter Parker who's us, who's like, oh shit, how am I going to make rent?
Yeah, I want to have real problems. Not, you got to pick a health plan for the company.
Oh no.
Now, have you ever thought about
Spider sense of signaling? He'll take the 401k.
Have you ever thought about how you would fix Spider-Man currently?
How I would?
Yeah, how would you unslot it?
2 words.
Yeah.
Ben Reilly. Seriously. That's actually how I would. I would bring back Ben Reilly because right now Mary Jane's now like the personal assistant of Tony Stark.
What?
In the comics. So it's just a matter of time before Tony bangs.
He better
Mary
not.
Jane.
Better not.
I'm not collecting Iron Man, but I pick it up just to keep tabs with. He better not bang Mary Jane. Mary Jane is a one-woman guy.
Yeah.
The only time Peter's ever strayed was when she was like, "Oh, we can't have a relationship," right? And poor Pete, he's had enough, but he's hey. And then once he's gone, you know what? Felicia Hardy. Yeah.
Well, she's bad now.
I know. But so in order to unslot Spider-Man, I would reintroduce Ben Reilly, and I would say, listen, Pete, you gotta get your life back in order. Because you, with your glowy green chest emblem and
I don't know what's going on,
and being policeman of the world, you could do. You know what? You can either get rid of that and say you need to focus on what matters in your life. You need to go to Tony Stark and you need to get that woman that you love. You need to reconcile that everything, and I'll take over as Spider-Man.
I'm really glad that my way to unslot it involves Tony Stark.
Oh, nice.
Because I hate Iron Man.
I can go on record and say I hate Iron Man, and people are like, well, how do you love Green Arrow but hate Iron Man?
Mm-hmm.
Because Green Arrow has flaws. He understands that. He's the Archer. He understands that, you know what? I look out for the little people, and Tony Stark should be not likable.
Yeah.
But,
I know we're getting a little off topic, but we have time to come back to it. But so I'm going to take this little tangent. So we have 2 ways to fix Spider-Man. The one is kind of a cop-out. The other one is cooler. Okay. So the cop-out is, so you remember when it all went wrong? It all went wrong after Civil War. They made the deal with Mephisto. Mm-hmm. So the issue starts. Doctor Strange comes to Spider-Man, and he's like, hey, I'm Doctor Strange. And he's like, I know. And Doctor Strange is like, you're in hell. Mephisto has you in a dream world this entire time. And he's like, what? Doc Ock's been riding around my body, though. And he's like, nah. And he pops his bubble, and he's still in Mephisto's lair. He's been there the whole time. And it's like, yep, everything went wrong for everything since, Brand New Day. Didn't actually happen, because that's a cop-out.
Yeah. That's as interesting, you may say that as a cop-out, but that is a more interesting cop-out
Yeah.
than the cop-out they used to fix Civil War.
I also want to add that Doctor Strange at one point in the comic book summons a demon he can't control, just like Civil War and just like World War Hulk. And so the only one that's not a cop-out, the one that we're going to accept all of Slot's stuff. So, and I know this might be a little weird because you still keep up on X-Men. But last time
barely, they're not giving me enough. Oh, I'm gonna, But a quick side note: X-Men, they're allergic to the Inhumans with the Mystic.
Oh no!
So now the X-Men, they'll either die or they'll be almost critically injured. So they basically ship the X-Men off planet.
Oh my gosh!
So please, I'm ready to hear some positivity.
The story starts at Peter Parker's Enterprises, whatever it is, at night. So there's only like a janitorial crew there. And we see Rhino and Juggernaut pull up, and they fist bump. And if Juggernaut doesn't have his powers anymore, he has a throwaway line like, "Good thing I got my powers back."
There you go.
And they just...
Off panel.
Yeah. They decimate the building. And Peter Parker's like, I guess I lost my company. But they don't kill a whole lot of people, so he doesn't go dark.
Yeah.
He's still like, I guess I got to go fight Rhino and Juggernaut. And then he fights them, and they escape. So then he goes back to just being regular, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So the second issue is like there's this nightclub that like there's this nightclub, and the owner like the owner like you like it's called like Club Euphoria, right? And like you go and like you get like euphoric hallucinations. And it's really just Mysterio, like...
Oh, it's about to set.
Mysterio just, like, just stealing your money.
That's awesome.
And Spidey shows up and shines his belt light at him. And it's like, oh. And here's where Iron Man comes in. In the beginning of that issue, Rhino and Juggernaut come back. And they're at Stark Enterprises now. And they're like, man, I didn't realize blowing up buildings was so fun. So they decimate Stark Enterprises, and Tony Stark's in it, so he dies. Because... All right. I know we have to get back to Clone Saga, but I'm on a rant now. All new, all different Marvel. The one character that they should have replaced. They replaced everybody.
Yeah.
They should have replaced Tony.
They that's it's and they had bringing back. Well, here's a good segue to bring back to the Clone Saga.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Ben Reilly was created, and they said, "Oh, we can do a Scarlet Spider because War Machine."
Yeah.
Was so successful. Thunder, which they replaced Tony Stark.
Yeah. With Thunderstrike.
Thunderstrike was another replacement.
U.S.
hero.
Agent.
U.S. Agent. So why not have, so why not have a replacement Spider-Man? That could have been an awesome awesome Avengers.
Oh, with all the secondary characters.
Secondary characters. That could have been the second Avengers team that they had.
Man, we need to pitch some ideas to Marvel.
Or another way to onslaught Spider-Man is if Spider-Man wants to police the world, then let him police the world and have Ben Reilly take
New York.
Yeah. And say, don't worry, you can trust me. I got this. And that way.
And then have Ben Reilly fall in love with Mary Jane.
Yes, because copyright.
House of ideas right here.
We're gonna copyright this idea right now.
Stop listening right now.
No. Keep listening.
Slot scribbling like, these guys are good.
He's like, man, Dan Slott is listening to this and he's going, oh my god. Love triangle. And he said copyright. God damn it. That goes for the belt. Bring it back.
Flashlight. We're not even updating it.
We're just bringing it back.
Yeah.
That's what. But yeah. So we'll go back to Clone Saga.
Yes.
They introduced Kane, who Kane is basically. How interesting is Kane? Is the first failed clone of Peter Parker. Who kills? He's Spider-Man that kills.
He has a degenerative disease, like because he's a clone.
Yeah. Which is called the Mark of Cain.
Oh, clever.
Yeah, and so he's infatuated with. He hates Ben Reilly, but loves Peter Parker, because that was one of his motivations for going after Ben Reilly was you can't be Spider-Man. Only Peter Parker can be Spider-Man, and that's what made the cool little. And ultimately, Kane kills Doc Ock, and then Pete gets thrown into jail. And this is another reason why Ben Reilly's awesome, because Ben Reilly's like, if you can't escape, I'll take your spot in jail. I'll fight off whatever's in jail. You be Spider-Man. That's how great Ben Reilly is the fact that
what a great guy.
He's like, you got a kid on the way, and we know you didn't do this. So while you figure it out, I'll take your place.
Yeah.
And then he ultimately fights Pete. Pete fights him, and it goes in a whole mess. So that was basically Ben Reilly, being the awesome guy that he was, and then ultimately more clones are made because the Jackal comes back.
He just keeps making
clones, and then it's up to Ben Reilly and Peter Parker to go out and fight the clones, ultimately end the Jackal, and Ben Reilly. It ends with Ben Reilly sacrificing himself to save.
Oh, the ending!
It's heartbreaking. It's one of the.
The ending is also a bit. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So Aunt May is dead.
Aunt May dies in issue 400. Do you have the issue of 400 is just a tombstone?
Yeah, I don't have the actual issue, but it's in that book.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's in there.
We have our reading materials out on the table. Because it's been so long, and we were trying to get my old vintage collection, like my Venom Lethal Protector, my Ben Reilly run of Spider-Man with the Clone Saga. When right around the time Sandy hit, we had a flood in my garage. And it basically destroyed my collection of my awesome 90s. So I've been going back and buying either the trade or the original issues, because sometimes it's actually cheaper to buy the original issues, like at for $1 or and that's what's great about 90s comics is that. For us who love them, we never had to say, "Oh my God, we had to buy this $60 issue."
Yeah.
We can go besides a few issues, like a first appearance of Gambit or some of the X-Men issues, even the original Claremont and Lee run.
Yeah.
Extinction Agenda. You can get these for, you can get this for $1, except for the first appearance of Gambit, first appearance of Deadpool, and the first appearance of Cable. Otherwise. You can get all these at a good price. So that's what's great about 90s. They're back. You can go and afford them. But the ending.
So the ending is. So what happens is,
Marvel was this new ending came because Marvel was really making money off of it, and they figured, you know what, let's wrap it, let's keep it going. And then when it kind of overstayed its welcome, it's kind of like a great movie series that. By the fifth movie, you're like, it's kind of like the Batman movies.
Yeah.
When you got the ending kind of hit Batman Forever.
Yeah.
You had the awesome 1989 movie. You had the awesome Batman Returns, right? And now you're like, oh Christ Almighty.
Yeah. Well, So the ending was touted as the return of the one true Spider-Man. Because this whole time you thought Peter Parker was a clone, Ben Reilly was the real one.
Ryan was looking through the old Wizard magazine, which have this ad, so we'll throw that on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'll throw them up there.
So it starts with Mary Jane going into labor, and I think they were going to name the baby May. Mm-hmm. She gives birth, and it's not crying. They lose the baby, and then someone attacks Ben Reilly, Spider-Man. And it's Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. And
at this time, Norman's been dead for 20 years.
Yeah.
Because he just before the whole original clone story introduced in the 70s, he took just like in the Spider-Man movie, he took the glider to the gut.
Yeah, and then Harry took over, and then he dies before the Clone Saga.
Yes.
So Norman's back, and and he's like, oh, I'm behind all of it. And then Peter and Ben both fight Green Goblin, and Norman reveals that he forged the DNA tests, and really Peter Parker's the real Spider-Man,
yes.
and he made him think he was a clone. And then to put a nice little period on the end of the saga, Ben takes the glider. He jumps in front of the glider before it strikes Peter. he gets killed and he dissolves into dust, thus proving that he's the clone. And then, just for the icing on the cake, I think after they defeat Green Goblin, there's they find out oh, he's hiding someone named May. Maybe he captured our baby or something. It's weird. And they open a storage locker up, and it's Aunt May. She didn't die either.
But do you remember? I remember when I was a kid, that death of Ben Reilly.
You had it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
my goodness! I remember reading it and then crying.
I don't blame you.
Ben Reilly, because this happened in '94. Everything was going so good in my life. X-Men the animated series was on season 3. The Dark Phoenix saga was being made in the cartoon. Carnage was introduced into the Spider-Man cartoon. Everything was going well. Even in the comics land, Gambit and Rogue are out on a date. You're like, all right, And Age of Apocalypse is happening during this. One of my favorite storylines of all time. And that's why people compare. The Clone Saga and Age of Apocalypse came out at the same time. And people are all like, Clone Saga sucks. Age of Apocalypse is so much better. But Age of Apocalypse also had the meeting of everybody come down. And Marvel didn't interject into it. The writers sat down. They planned what they're going to do. What issues, what spin-offs, what you needed to do, how it was going to start, what the middle was going to be, and what the ending was. The Clone Saga had that, but Marvel kind of got their hands in there and said, this is making us money.
Yeah.
Keep going. Just keep going. Which we didn't mind until sort of that final act of it. But have you grown to found an appreciation for it being Norman Osborn?
Yeah, I mean, he's a good villain.
Because one of the cooler stories to date of recent time is when Norman Osborn takes over the Thunderbolts.
Yes.
And then he takes over S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, Dark Reign,
in which he's the whole mastermind behind it. Who gets rid of S.H.I.E.L.D. and makes it Hammer. Yeah. I thought that was so cool. Hammer and S.H.I.E.L.D. Where I was like, oh, and so you don't get that awesome Norman Osborn, who really does do a good job of getting all the villains together, and he's Spider-Man's true arch nemesis.
Yeah.
Look he killed Gwen Stacy, he killed Ben Reilly. How much Green Goblin was the father of his best friend, then the mantle was picked up by his best friend, right? How crazy! So I found that. Even though it lasted a little too long, I do like the way they introduced. If you had to kill off Ben Reilly, you gave him the hero's death.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, the only other hero that I could think of was the Flash, who did Crisis, who ran so fast. By defeating the Anti-Monitor, he died. Yeah. But that was the hero's death, and you didn't see from him anymore. It's kind of the way until they brought him back, about a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Until they brought him back. But Ben Reilly had that lasting effect, was that he went through that journey. We went through that journey with Ben Reilly.
Yeah.
We were like, all right, I am not Spider-Man. I gotta earn the right to be Spider-Man. And then so he does Scarlet Spider, and then he says, you know what? I'm now where the people need Spider-Man back in. Bad, because even though J. Jonah Jameson wrote all those things bad about Spidey, the people loved him. People loved him. So he came back as Spider-Man, and then once poor Pete loses the baby, he sacrifices himself, to make sure that the one true Spider-Man lives. But I think by doing that, he proves he is the one true Spider-Man.
Aww. Do you remember your first issue with Ben Reilly as a sensational Spider-Man? The big emblem costume?
I believe it was the one where he was fighting the alien lizard.
Yeah.
And it was sort of Peter Parker was in the scrubs, because on the cover you see the alien lizard holding Spidey over the cliff.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you see is this guy in scrubs with like the green mask over his face, and it's like, who's helping out Spider-Man? And it was ultimately Peter Parker. But I remember that costume. I love that costume.
The first time I saw that costume was Marvel vs. DC, because that was such a big deal. My dad actually brought it home, and like he's on the first page. It's Spidey swinging over the city in that costume, and it was just like, this is a beautiful pose, and like, whoa. Like I didn't like I was like confused, like why are they calling him Ben? It's Peter. Yeah. But that's how I found out later.
And in that thing they had Carnage teamed up with the Joker.
Yeah.
And they were like, and he was like, and then Carnage was like, I get the joke. And then the Joker for the first time in his life was like, what? He was like, the full destruction of everything. And Joker's like, I like them. So they shake hands, and they're like, all right. So in that storyline, you had Ben Reilly, and you had Carnage. How great is that?
I know we're going to have the Marvel vs. DC episode, and I'm looking forward to that because we're going to get to talk more Ben Reilly, and we're going to have sexy Ben Reilly, and he fights his DC counterpart, which we also think is sexy, Superboy.
Oh.
So when we get to that episode, we're gonna have a good time. Just on that battle alone.
And another upcoming episode, Ryan, when we came in, Ryan's like, I was doing a search for 90s comics, and I found the 10 thing that sucks about the 90s. We're gonna debunk that.
Yeah, we gotta fight back.
We're gonna fight back. And that'll be. We'll figure out when that one comes. When you listen to that episode, it will star that. So anything?
Excuse me.
Oh, no problem. Anything else you want to say about the Clone Saga? Besides, everyone out there, if you haven't read it, please do read it.
Yeah, I think it's worth taking a look at.
Forget what the naysayers say about it. You two are gonna feel like you could be Spider-Man through.
They actually, a few years ago, they tried to condense it and re-release it in like a 6-part miniseries, and I had a few of the issues, but it really only works in the 90s. Because, I don't know, when they drew Scarlet Spider, and, he had, there's something about the way they drew him in the 90s.
They don't, I think I figured that out. When you look at Scarlet Spider in the 90s, even with the hoodie today, the arms aren't ripped up. They're normally mostly clean. Yeah. Right? The hood is 50-50 on the rip or the actual full hood, or just ripped where the hood would have been. But there's also the fact that, in the 90s they put the black.
That's not even a hoodie.
Yeah, we're looking at a cover of Spider.
Yeah, this is the Clone Saga when they try to condense it. This is 2 of 6, and we might post a picture of this.
Yeah, we should.
But Ben Reilly's on the cover, and they don't have him in a hoodie.
He's in a tank top. He's in a tank top. No. No. He's got his tank top tucked in. Yeah. Which we could say, all right, but the hoodie was baggy. Yeah. So it didn't look like,
Look, Ben Reilly could fill a hoodie.
Yeah, Ben Reilly could fill a hoodie.
This guy looks scrawny.
They have black around his spider eyes were all white. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't like the black. They put the black around it, and it was kind of embossed. It kind of was a little bit. I like to think Spidey's eyes are shiny. Yeah. Right. But I also like when they close the show, like when they.
Oh, like when he's like dizzy or blinded, because I do like that too.
We can't all be Todd McFarlane and draw the hand on the head in a weird pose to say, oh my God, what's wrong with Spidey? He must be dizzy. Yeah. And then they don't add a slickness to it. Like here, it's all red with the black on it to give that shiny type feel to it. Oh yeah. And this one is just colored in the current day. It's colored red. Look at the muscle structure. I'm opening up a book of Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. And it collects Amazing Spider-Man number 399, Spider-Man number 57, Spectacular Spider-Man number 223, and Amazing Spider-Man number 400. And just looking at the way Bagley drew it, he draws the red costume with the black on top where the muscles would be. So it gives that kind of that shiny look to it. Where today it's just kind of all red. Have you
And
noticed
the
that?
emblem's not even in the right. It's
that is
not
the big-
tilted.
Sexy Ben Reilly would not go with a
He knew.
conformative
He knew.
spider.
He was like, have that thing tilted.
Yeah, he took it and he had that tilted from going from bottom right, top right to bottom left.
I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, or top left, bottom right if you're wearing the hoodie. If you're looking at it, it's top right to bottom left. But in this one, it's straight up and down. Like, why? It's This is not. This
That's
is
an
not
insult
sexy.
to Ben Reilly.
This is an insult to his sexuality. Not saying it's an insult because he's not. They need to make him sexy.
He's really hip. He's really
He's
cool.
hip.
He looks like scrawny and
He's scrawny.
not cool.
No, this is not the Justin Timberlake version of Spider-Man.
Oh, it's also worth mentioning about Kane.
Oh, Kane, yes, and right before the Marvel just had their event. Secret Wars happened. We're about a couple months after Secret Wars. We're about 2 months after Secret Wars. But before Secret Wars happened, Kane is still alive in the storyline, and he is in Texas, and he takes up the Scarlet Spider mantle.
Well, do you remember how he got better?
No.
So there's Spider Island happened.
Yes, where everyone got Spider Island, everyone got spider powers.
And Kane was like transformed into like this hulking tarantula man spider thing. And I think the resolution of that was they had anti-venom to cure everybody.
Yeah.
But at one point, Tarantula gets thrown into the anti-venom, and he comes out, and he's like totally cured, and he looks like Peter Parker again.
Okay.
So yeah. So
technically, he's running around.
So he takes up the new Scarlet Spider,
which is such a nice.
That's
costume.
also a cool costume.
That's also again showing that the two clones.
Yeah, the clones have a good fashion sense.
Good fashion, crazy kill 'em all. Kane can get good fashion sense after he goes through some anti-venom.
Yeah, so
which I'm not too sold on the anti-venom.
You don't like the character?
First of all, I love Eddie Brock. So if Eddie Brock is not Venom,
then you don't care.
I don't want.
Look, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean, anti-venom the look is just inverted Venom. It's white. It's a white symbiote with all white with black spider symbol and black eyes, as opposed to the black costume with the white eyes and the white spider.
I remember I was reading Beyond. It was a miniseries, and Venom was in that. It was sort of like Secret Wars all over again. Venom was in that, and there was something wrong with him. Like he had his white eyes, but then he had smaller like red eyes.
Oh, I don't.
And I was like, and they called him Mac.
Yes.
Mac, and I was like, Mac Gargan got the symbiote. Where's Eddie?
Yes, I remember reading that, and because it's like, why is Scorpion wearing why is he Venom? That is not that ain't supposed to be the way it is, and so they basically replaced Eddie Brock twice.
Yeah, because what's his face? Flash has it now.
And
he became a Space Knight.
Yeah. Let's we paused for silence it's like we took a moment of silence for the Venom symbiote, how we love you so, and then we had to bury it. Yes, Flash Thompson is now Venom. How do you feel about that?
It's pretty Look, so Flash Thompson was Peter Parker's bully, but he loves Spider-Man. That's a good story. Then there was an issue where Flash comes back from like Afghanistan. He's lost both legs, and he tells everybody about how Spider-Man inspired him to become a soldier and do those things. And they offer him like cybernetic limbs, and he says no. And you're like, oh, it was a good story.
Yeah, they could have ended. Flash. I think we talked about this earlier in episode 1, how we were comic book geeks in the beginning, and we weren't popular. we were judged heavily, and we dealt with bullies in our own way. So the fact that Flash Thompson, a bully character, we're like, wait a second. Okay, I can understand the bully. You know, he redid himself. He redeemed himself, and now okay, we can deal with that story. Spider-Man inspired him to do good, but I digress. We'll save that for another day, another time when we go over Venom, Lethal Protector, which will be another upcoming episode, which has Venom and Mark Bagley awesome holofoil covers. So we'll wrap up the show there. We successfully brought back the Clone Saga into our world and into your world. Definitely go check it out. So yeah, that's this week's issue of the Clone Saga Begins on the Neon Nerds. All right, I'm Phil McNulty.
And I'm Ryan Brady. Neon Nerds out!
And real quick, I wanted to add about the contest we mentioned earlier. We had to end the pod a little bit early because poor Ryan's dog, Jack, had a bit of an accident with a medical issue, but he's all right now, and I wanted to give this a shout-out to Jack. We're thinking about you, buddy. Feel better, and we know that you're going to get better soon. So with the contest, as both Ryan and I are comic book illustrators, and we both love Ben Reilly, we figured to have a contest to kind of plug our show. We're each going to give one lucky winner an original drawing of Ben Reilly, one by him and one by me. So if you're on Facebook and Twitter, we'd like you to sort of send out a tweet or a message. Follow us first on Twitter, which is at @neon_nerds, or at Facebook at Neon Nerds Podcast. And we want you to kind of share it. Share the post or retweet the tweet or even tweet out. Either way, it just has to mention at @neon_nerds and at Marvel with the hashtags Clone Saga and the hashtag Neon Nerds Podcast. And if you're doing it on Facebook, you just like the page, and then you would share the page for more of your friends to like it. And what you would do is you would just put, that you'd mention our page at Neon Nerds Podcast, and then you'd mention at Marvel with the hashtags Clone Saga and the hashtag Neon Nerds Podcast. So that's if you want to win some free art by myself and Ryan, all you have to do is do one of those two ways. And thank you very much for listening to this week's issue of the Neon Nerds Podcast. Next week is going to be sort of a doubleheader. The first half is going to be us debunking the list of the things that people say that are horrible about the 90s, and we're going to school them and say, nuh-uh. And then we're going to have the second part. We're going to discuss the death of Superman. We're going to talk all about the goodness that is Steel and Superboy and Eradicator, and talk more. I guess it's a follow-up of another 90s story that's in controversy that we absolutely love. So until next time, and as my good buddy and fellow podcaster Ryan Brady says, Neon Nerds out.